Welcome to the Millionaire University podcast. I'm your host, Brien Gearin, back in the saddle with you today. And on this edition of the MU Pod, I am joined by my new friend, Sam Preston. He's the owner of Service Scalers. It's a digital marketing agency for home service businesses. And guys, get this. He's on pace to hit $2 million this year, but he started at the very beginning of this year. It's absolutely insane. That's awesome. What an incredible accomplishment already. Sam, before I just blow you away with verbal bouquets, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks, man. I'm pumped to be here. I'm excited. This is such a vibe just hanging out with you. So I'm excited what this is gonna be and where this is gonna go.
Yeah, dude, myself included. When I discovered that when I was introduced to you about a month ago and I saw you're in the marketing space for home service companies, that's my bread and butter business, does the same thing. So I was like, oh, we were going to nerd out so hard. I'm going to have such a great time. And then getting to hang out with you even just before recording here has been a ton of fun. So all you listeners and viewers out there, we're going to have a great time today. We're going to talk about Sam and his business and how he got it started, what his origin story looks like, how he grew multiple agencies before this one, and how he's doing this one within a span of a year, already hitting $2 million, almost on your way to $2 million. And then we're also going to talk about a piece of the business that part of this, one of the services that you offer to your clients that I'm particularly interested in, but we haven't talked about it on this show before. So we're going to get to that. But first, Sam, let's jump right in and talk about a little bit about your origin story. How did Service Scalers come to be? How did you get into this business? And where'd you get started?
Yeah, I mean, Service Scalers was definitely not the first one that I started, right? There's a long line of, successes and failures before that. Everything from eBay reselling business before Gary Vee got it, made it cool, to, little Instagram business. I had built out when I first got in is because I was doing sales at a company. They switched me inbound marketing, so webinars and things like that. When that happened, my commission tanked. So I had to start making money. We were living in Denver. I couldn't afford to live and pay for my wife and I to eat. So I was like, okay, I've got to go make more money. How am I going to do that? And so I went to some networking meetings and somebody needed a new website. I was like, I'll build you a new website. How hard can it be? Mistake number one. And then, how much? $500 deal, and built out a website. At that point, I was like, you know what? I'm young. I'm smart. I can figure this out. I'm going to build out an agency in the box. I'm going to do influencer marketing, SEO, Google ads, Facebook ads, whatever you need, I'm going to do it. And that was also one of the biggest mistakes of my life. I hated myself for that decision. I sold some big deals, but nothing, I basically trapped myself inside of doing all these different things, and I couldn't scale it. So the next business I started was just a PPC agency, and that's all it did, and focused on getting really good results, focused on hiring and building out the team to make that happen, and was able to scale that up to $1 million, taking all those lessons. From then, brought in some other partners that had different skill sets from me, built out a content agency, a website agency, which takes us all the way up into, I know I'm high level, just hitting all the bullet points. But last year around September, decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to go into a niche, right? We have these vertical companies where you do PPC for everyone and anyone. I do content for anyone and everyone, a website for anyone and everyone. What if we just selected a niche? The only thing we do is help home service companies. And that was based on we had some home service companies that we had success with. So I had kind of a plan. I knew how I would go and attack their market and get them leads. So I did. And, I started kind of in September, started running some ads, throwing some ads on podcasts, starting to build out some social content. And in January, we hit roughly 10K in revenue, which is awesome, and super proud of that. And right now we're sitting at 1.3 at a run rate of adding $1 million a quarter. So my expectations will be right at that 2 mark by the end of the year.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. So when you started this one, you said you kind of started from scratch, you picked a niche. Can you talk about the importance of picking a niche versus trying to serve everybody? Because I think especially for those who want to start a digital marketing agency or people who may own one, there's a lot of them out there, right?
Yeah.
And I've made this problem for myself in the past, trying to focus on everybody. What was the catalyst for you in switching into we need to niche down?
It's really two things. One is fulfillment. It is difficult from a marketing standpoint to always come up with a new idea. Or how do I make this marketing work? So when you're working with a SaaS company, the process is different than when you're working with a plumber. That's different than when you're working with an e-com business. And so every single time we'd get a new client, we'd have to come up with a new strategy, which is hard to do, or rather it's hard to scale, because then you have to make sure you hire the team members that have that strategic mind that can keep coming up with those ideas. And that's hard. That's expensive to pay for that person. You might be able to do that because you have that mindset and you're an entrepreneur and you're good at that kind of stuff, but it is hard to train that in. What you want to be able to do is scale outputs. So do this, do this, do this task, right? And then when you can just create everything as an output with a process and the system behind it, it's so much easier to scale that than to scale people. So that was the first thing, is making a process that I know when I get a plumber in, I literally have copy and paste what we've already done in all these different cities for these clients and start there. So much easier from a fulfillment standpoint. The second thing is your messaging, right? It's so much easier to go to a plumber and say, look, I've got 30 other plumbers and here's all the results. Like, can I just come do this for you? So much easier than, hey, I've done this a lot. I can get results. So like, fulfillment, way easier to scale. From a sales, way easier to pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things where I think especially when you're starting out, you don't really think about that because you might be motivated by, I need that cash. I need to get that bag because I got expenses and I'm doing this thing and I got to make money. Totally understandable. But as you scale and get bigger, that's when it's like the riches be in the niches. And it's time to figure out where can we have this effect on the output and then be able to repeat it. Because you're right. I think the biggest part of that is it makes it so much easier to go into a meeting with a prospect and say, we do this thing, we do it this well, here's our proof. And like you said, can we do it for you? Here's the price.
Yeah.
And you're at that point where it's like, if it's a no from them on price or whatever it might be, then okay, it's just not a good fit.
Yeah.
But it sounds like, and definitely for you, it's most of the time like, okay, here's the proof, let's go do it. And it works. Right?
So much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also say that like I don't regret all the like building out and finding, creating that over and over again. One, I became really good at creating strategies on how to get results for clients. And two, I figured out what worked. Right? Like the home service business worked really well. I had a really good plan for that and I got to copy and paste that and go into that market. But if I hadn't taken just everybody and anybody, then I wouldn't have learned, I'm good at, I've got a strategy that works for them. Let me just go take that in. So if you're starting a marketing agency, don't be afraid to just go get a bunch of clients, go get on Upwork. That's a great place to find a bunch of random clients that need jobs done. Find something that you're good at and copy and paste that into the market.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are the exact services that you guys do offer right now?
So everything's intent-based, so search. So think LSA, GMB, Google Ads, SEO, beautiful high converting websites are the main things.
Okay, gotcha. And then did you decide on all of these? So we're talking about niche now, we're talking about having specific service or services, but these all sing together, right? Because it's all Google-based, it's all SEO-based, and it's all web-based. And a website, is kind of like your foundation. It is your digital foundation. If you have a crappy website, then all of your other efforts are going to be very hard to do, and you might waste a ton of money, especially on ads, if you're sending them to a crappy website. So was that for you guys, was web dev just something you always included or you always did? Or did you have that same thought process of, if you have a bad website, you're not going to be able to fix this on your own. We're going to have to do this for you.
Yeah, I tried to avoid it. I mean, like generally did not want to build out a website agency. The problem is like, I can't sell you ads if your website sucks. Mm-hmm. And there's just so many bad website agencies that they're not good at it. We had done it enough times to where we had a bunch of templates we could literally just copy and paste into like, okay, hey, like use these to get it started. So that's where we got into, okay, let's build out this. It is a means to an end. I want to do this because I want to run your ads so that you can get better conversions. Because I know that if I can make you more money than you're paying me, you will keep paying me money. So it was definitely a needs based on the clients.
Yeah. So when you added web dev, is that something that you do internally? Did you outsource it? What was your processes involved with building the websites?
Yeah, so it is right now we have outsourced to a couple different devs. I did this for a couple reasons. It's a little bit more expensive from a standpoint, but also it allows us to scale a little bit easier when you have a couple. And it's easier, like if I've got 10 developers and I say, hey guys, I've got this new project. Here you go. They all bid on the idea. I can figure out who's hungry. I can figure out who's good at it. And then I always have someone to come do the job, right? Now we've got a couple of people that are doing such a good job that we're talking about bringing them in internally so that we can fix our costs and understand, okay, all we have to do is make more than this because this is our fixed cost. But right now, like we bring a lot of outsource to come in and help us with those.
Gotcha. And then is your background in actually like running the ads or building websites, or is it more of you know enough to be dangerous, but I'm an entrepreneur, I'm going to go find the people who are killers at this and install them in the right positions?
Yeah, I used to think I was good at this until I hired those people, those killers, and it's often they go, "Hey, Sam, I know you have an opinion on this. You're just not a designer, so like
Yeah.
we're gonna go with this color palette. Fine." And that's the thing is you have to have people that you trust that are really good at it and are willing to push back on you and say, "No, dummy, like we should definitely do this," and they're often right. So
Yeah.
I prefer having that team that can make that happen.
Absolutely. And so while we're talking about people and teammates, how did you go about, who did you find and how did you find them to bring them in and be part of your team when it comes to fulfillment?
Yeah, so from a recruitment standpoint, I think the main places we always go is Indeed, LinkedIn recruitment, and then Upwork, right? Those are kind of like the three. There's a couple like onlinejobs.ph is a good resource if you're looking for low cost team members. That works. That doesn't, like sometimes you can find really talented team members there. Sometimes it's just like, feels like it's a waste. There is different outsourced agencies that can go. I think talenthq.com is a company that like will go find you people in Central America that's super good at what they do. There's a couple of other agencies that we'll hire in when we go find a pool of talent. It always depends on if they're client facing and how talented that role needs to be. When that role is more of a doer, a grunt worker, someone that doesn't need to be in front of a client, we tend to want to find out how can we get the best results at the cheapest cost, right? And so that's hiring in like Central America, that's hiring in the Philippines, things like that. So we love like agencies if we have to, or running our own like Facebook ads or LinkedIn ads. If we are looking for somebody that's client facing, we generally want to find somebody in America or the UK. And that's really when we go Indeed and LinkedIn. And then if we're going for somebody that is going to be more of on the leadership team, then, it just depends on where we find them, right? We usually want a referral there.
So what's the internal hierarchy look like? You're the owner, the CEO, and then do you have a certain amount of, you said leadership team, and then like there's the client facing, probably like account manager type of jobs, and then the fulfillment team. Is that kind of like maybe I guessed it correctly already, but what does it look like for you guys?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So for us, I break the company into 4 different sections: marketing, sales, fulfillment, and recruitment. So I like to put one person in charge of those numbers, right? And that person gets a certain number of data points or numbers that they are required to report on 3 times a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that's how I hold that leadership team accountable to their jobs. And then underneath them, they have their teams and they have their leaders on a team. They have their, account managers have team members underneath them. And so I usually like to, so from a high level, right? Leaders charge of their numbers and their teams. And then from a fulfillment standpoint, that's really where it gets broken down. One thing that's different than what I've seen in other agencies is other agencies have an account manager that's a generalist, and they're more of a project manager, a salesperson, things like that. And then underneath them is the team that actually does it, right? The specialists, the grunt workers, things like that. So we actually removed that person completely, and you deal directly with a specialist. So the pro to that is when a client comes in and says, hey, why is my cost per lead going up? That nerd is sitting there saying, well, it's because your cost per click went up because the keywords that we're working on that have driven us, conversions has gone up, right? So they can answer those nitty gritty questions right on the spot. They're in your account. That's great. The con of that is you are dealing with 4 different point of contacts. Someone who's really good at Google Ads or GMB or SEO. So there is that we are working on that problem, but we find that clients want to work with somebody that's a specialist. And then it makes it super easy for us to incentivize them getting results. So your Google Ads strategist is incentivized by getting you leads. When you get leads, they get incentivized. They get bonus based off that. So everybody wins. And so that's the strategy that we've been testing out for a good 6 months, and I feel like it's working really well.
Have you guys run into any struggles with finding the right mix of a talented person who has the talent and what you need them to do on the fulfillment side, but also has the willingness and the personality to be client facing?
Yes. But also because we're not holding them to any kind of sales numbers, we just don't care. I don't incentivize based off churn. The only thing I care about is your ability to get your clients leads. And so sometimes you're dealing with somebody that's just a little bit nerdy, right? Like D&D player, right? That would rather be video games. They're more of a developer than a salesperson. So sometimes you're dealing with somebody, you're like, oh, you don't have the perfect sales personality that's going to go and get me enough, increase that average order value. And we just tell the clients this is what you're hiring. You're not only buying an HVAC unit, you're buying the specialist to install that HVAC unit, right? That's what this is. You're not just buying Google Ads as a service. You're buying the specialist, someone who's really good at it. So we obviously want to see somebody that can communicate well with a client, and we have to work through some of those issues, but we prefer if you're just a badass at Google Ads, I just don't care. We want you to get results, and I think the clients are willing to work through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I've ever had anyone who asks or pushes back on the price for what we charge, so you're not just buying this service, you are buying our expertise. I have an expert in this field who is taking care of this aspect of your account, and they are here because they're an expert. That's what you're paying for, besides everything else and the convenience of not having to do it yourself and suck at it. So I can relate on that one. So what do you guys, in terms of pricing, how have you priced out your services? Do you guys have different pricing models, different matrices or packages? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so it's always just a little bit different depending on who we're talking to. For example, if we're going and talking to a franchise, we have a model that scales a little bit differently, and it's more based off of a percentage of ad spend. Because those franchises are starting brand new, they don't have a lot of money. They need to figure out how they can make it work. And we know if we get 30 of them, the price point actually works from a volume standpoint. Yeah. That's few and far between. That's generally not we have a handful of those relationships that we're building, but that's not the number one thing we're going after. So what we have done is started randomly with a price point, take SEO, right? We said, hey, $3,000. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to charge. As we're going, we realize, the problem with $3,000 is we want more backlinks, or we want more content, and we just can't be profitable in a way that makes it easy for us to scale or go hire that super talented person. So we need to increase that price. So that same $3,000 that I charged in January is now $4,000 for literally the same services that are coming through. But I've been able to get more out of that service by hiring, again, better people, things like that. And so we're always trying to see how we can push that price up. Honestly, we want to have higher price points so that we can go hire better people, get better results. We've seen that works out better for us in the long run and our clients. And so there's no magic button, in my opinion, as long as it financially, your COGS makes sense and you get profit in through that, making sure and seeing what the market says. Often, I think for Google Ads, we charge $2,000 a month. And it's so funny to talk to some people and they're like, what? $2,000 a month? I can go pay someone $500 a month to do what you guys and get the same results. But then I secret shop our competitors, and they're $3,500 a month for our same service.
Yeah.
And so it's just funny how people will have a different reaction to your price point. Ours, I feel is super reasonable at that price point. Obviously, compared to our competitors, we're much cheaper. But then compared to other people that you can go find, we're super expensive. So yeah, I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, being in the same line of work, it is amazing how you can be talking to one prospect in the morning who's like, $2,000 for that? Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? I'm like, this is pretty basic. And then in the afternoon, you talk with someone, they're like, oh, that's it. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, sure. Yeah, definitely. But I mean, that's the nature of small business, especially in the service sector and the contracting lanes. It's like you got the big dogs, you got some medium dogs, and you got a lot of small ones, and
Yeah.
everybody is in a different spot. And it's just crazy how it plays out.
I've talked to some people where we've pitched 2 grand for Google Ads and they have legitimately said, "Oh yeah, you're too small." Like
Yeah.
just like nothing else. Like I say that number, they're like, "Yeah, we can't take you seriously
Yeah.
because you're just, and it's funny to me."
Yeah.
But next time I'll price it up
Yeah. Yeah.
so we
Well,
can take you
did I say
seriously.
2? I meant 7. My bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's just the setup fee.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Well, so do you guys like parcel out your services based on what a company needs, or is it like you get all or nothing?
Yeah, no, it's come as based on what you're doing. So like if you don't need SEO, like I'm not going to sell you SEO. I have a pretty strict rule of like I'm not going to badmouth another agency if they're actually doing a good job. So I try to find like, hey, this is the things that they're doing. Here's the things that I feel like they're missing. You should just take this back and tell them to go do this, right? Or if you just lost trust with them, happy to do that for you. I know that if you're working with another company and they don't do your Google ads and you need just Google ads, if we come in and do your Google ads, you're going to be impressed with our services and how often we communicate and our reporting to the point where you might consider us for that next thing. And that happens all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the same for my business. It's like here's our base type of services. Here's the playbook I think you need based on what you've told me. But we also have X, Y, and Z if you need it. You don't need ads right now.
Yeah.
If you do need them in the future, you want to put fuel on that fire, we can do that. The
Yeah.
ability is there. So it's kind of like having more bullets in the chamber, and it works out.
Well, let me ask you this, because we're running into some of our competitors force you to do the full system, right? Like, hey, if you come to us, we're going to sell you a website and all these services. The benefit of that is it's an enclosed system. So it's so much easier to track leads successfully, channels. Like, so I get why they do it. It makes sense. We just don't. Have you run into that same thing and same issues? And how have you solved for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, and that's in the last year, that was a big thing for me going back and forth on, because I sold a handful of clients it was kind of our full package. Like once I added web dev about 8 months ago, I was like, we can do it all now. And now I can confidently sit in a meeting with someone who wants to talk about Google ads, but has a terrible website. I can confidently sit there and say, hey, I'm not going to ask you to spend like $3K a month in ads and another, $2,000 with us to run them, when I think it's going to be hard for us to get those results because your website is terrible. And you also don't manage your Google profile and you don't have like your internal infrastructure is a mess, right? So I said, what's best for you is our full package where you're getting a brand new website where we've built it. We have control over it. We can see where the leads are coming from. We can track it. We can put everything we need on there in order to get the results that you want. And then we tie it into your Google Ads account. We tie it into, if they're doing Facebook, we tie it into Facebook. If they're doing their Google business profile, we tie it in. I mean, if you're doing that full package, that's what you're doing. And right now we have a small handful of clients that are on that full package with us, and it's going great. However, we have the clients that are typically, if they're smaller and they don't have the ability to shell out for that website, or they just don't want to pay for Google ads, or they just want the Google business profile, I would find myself being like, look, from an agency standpoint, it's profitable for me to sell a Google business profile management either with or without email newsletter marketing. That's kind of like our base stuff that I say, these are the 2 things every business needs. We focus in these sectors, but these are the things every business needs. We can offer that to you for an affordable price because I can be wildly profitable on my end with it. I'm happy, you're happy, right? But Mr. Business or Mrs. Business Owner, if you want to really do what you're telling me that you want to do, we work with ambitious people. Those are the people I want to work with because I'm the same way, right? Then here's what you're going to need to grow into. But here's the base level to start at. So we offer that base level, and that for me is what is most scalable in my business. But for the people who show the desire and show the need for the full package, we still have it available. So I don't know if that answered your question perfectly or not, because it's kind of in between, but it's like you said, it's kind of based on need. And as long as it's profitable for me, it's good for my people and my team, and they're a good person that we want to work with, we will take them on.
I think that makes sense. I think that one of the things I've seen, like a lot of our clients that have the most success have that post follow-up. And that's something we don't currently do. Like, we're not doing your email follow-up or your newsletter or your chat or SMS, or we're not like managing your hatch or something like that. So I'm starting to build out a playbook so people can take it and run and do it, but also feeling like maybe we should do that service, which is not as simple as like, hey, yeah, go make more money. It's like, oh, no, like this actually will distract the team. They'll have to focus on that. They won't be focused on what they're actually doing. So it's not as simple as just add more to the, just add another service,
Right.
go hire somebody. Yeah, that's great, but it does distract the team. You got to be careful with that as a, CEO. And so really considering maybe partnering up with somebody that can take that on and go like, hey, these are like the two companies we refer out to, because like when you reach out to somebody 10 to 15 times in between a 2-week span after you've gotten that lead, your chances of closing them significantly increase. And so I think it's a great thing to do, is to think of, as from an agency owner, think of the full picture and see how much of that pie you can take up and what you can't, bringing in other people, partners, services, things like that.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the one thing you got to really keep in mind is, can this still be fulfilled in the manner that, we fulfill it in, which is very high quality, right? Like I don't sell poop, right? We're selling the high quality stuff. We're getting you these lead results, but I need to make sure if I'm taking on new work that we have the people in the right positions and the right seats to perform. But yeah, especially if you're a fast scaling type of company, you definitely have to keep that in mind, which you're going through right now. So you're the perfect man to talk to.
Yeah.
But
it's funny because once you get to this place, like everything becomes a capacity issue.
Yeah.
It's a capacity issue from sales. It's a capacity issue from marketing. Fulfillment's a capacity issue. You just got to continue to figure out, okay, how do we break through this capacity? Is this an efficiency problem? Is it a volume of team members? Where is that capacity issue, and how do we break through that?
Exactly. So one thing we talked about a little bit ago briefly, or you mentioned it, but I'm curious about it. For all the services that you offer, how do you track what you're doing and the results that your clients are getting? Because I find in my business, it's the holy grail of, okay, how many leads came in? How many of them were deemed quality leads? And Mr. and Mrs. Business Owner, how many did you close? What does the ROI look like? How do you guys track that?
It's a great question. And there is no, like, this, like everyone hates GA4.
Yeah.
Like it was the worst thing that ever happened.
Yeah.
And so it's not a perfect system. I would say that there are 3 events that we are absolutely tracking: schedule appointment, form fills, and phone calls, right? Just those 3. And form fills and schedule appointment is pretty simple. Push through UTMs, or the GCLID, into that form. So that gets into your CRM, and you should be able to track it through the CRM. Was it quality? Did they set an appointment? Did they close it a revenue? The one that gets a little bit trickier is phone calls, because you have to actually listen to those phone calls. You can use something like the Service Titan Marketing Pro or CallRail. Sometimes you team up with both of those, and that'll help you with source. But the problem is you don't know quality. So what we ended up doing is offering a listening service that basically listens to every phone call that comes through, whether it's G&B, Google Ads, SEO, whatever it is, and then tracking all our notes in there. So, hey, this is the source. This is what they were looking for. This is a quality lead. It booked an appointment. And then pushing that into your CRM as best we can. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes you're using a random CRM, or you're a $10 million business still using Google Sheets. And so,
not uncommon.
Not uncommon, unfortunately. So, or sometimes fortunately, sometimes it makes it easier.
Right.
But like, that's how we listen and track the quality of leads that are coming through and push that information over to you.
Gotcha. And that kind of reminds me to a thing back to your last question about how we handle doing like a full package and nothing else type of thing. The big benefit to where you're doing all of it is now your measurement tracking is like 98% of your leads are coming through a channel that we handle. Like, so there, like our metric is how much money did you make this month, right?
Yeah.
We're outside of like referrals from Aunt Debbie and like, friends and neighbors. Everything that's digital, every lead that's coming in digitally or through the phone came from one of those sources, right? So there's a benefit there. But yeah, I feel like sometimes that's always the bugaboo in our industry of, how exactly are we tracking all this? How are we tracking quality? And how can we verify that the client is also doing their part? Because on the marketing side, there's only so much we can do to bring the best people to the front doorstep. But at the end of the day, it's up to the business to close that new business, right? We can't control that. So
I've had situations where we feel like the marketing is really good and the client's like, hey, like, we're churning, the results weren't great, we didn't get any leads. And I went, hold on, any leads? No leads. That's a red flag. Okay. So you go in and you listen to every phone call and you realize their admin person is just not booking those appointments.
right.
Like it's there. They're just not doing it. And so we've pushed that report to the client saying, hey, like you're good to churn, right? Like that's okay. It happens sometimes. But we just need you to know, like these will actually, there's a bunch of good quality leads here. And we've had some people go, oh, wow, you're right. Turn it back on. Wow. Okay. Now we're good. And so sometimes you do have to just like dig into that data. And if you're a company, like you can absolutely do that same thing. We're not doing anything magical. You just hire a VA, train them, manage them. It's just, basically the same price that you're going to pay us to do it. We will train and manage that person. So,
right. Absolutely. Yeah. So do you use any sort of software or proprietary technology or artificial intelligence that assists you in any of the fulfillment of your services?
I mean, ChatGPT is pretty, hey, like SEO is probably the easiest way to do that, right? It takes the top 3 articles, say, hey, like scan these, tell me why they're so amazing, why you're ranking for 1, 2, and 3. Take that, use a formula or prompt based on like what keyword we're going after and the format we want to use and say, okay, now write this for me. Then you push that over to an English-based writer or really an editor, really not even a writer anymore, and saying, okay, hey, like, go through this, make sure it's all aligned with our client, everything's spelt well, and then push this live. So definitely from an SEO perspective, from a Google Ads perspective, it helps with getting out headlines because man, it's tough when you're trying to come up with a Google Ad headline. You only have 30 characters, and so it's easy if you're not limited by characters. But once you are, it's like it gets tougher. So creating creative headlines is a good way to use that, or coming up with new keywords. It doesn't really do anything that we can't do. It just speeds up the process. So yeah, like that's another one you can do is once you have some like that call data, you can push it in to CallRail and say, hey, would you analyze this for me? And it can quickly push out like stats and data and like, hey, it looks like 25% of your calls are coming in from Google Ads, but most of your appointments are coming in from SEO, something like that. So yeah, we try to incorporate as much as possible because I feel like if you're not, you're just like falling behind.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we first started out, I teased one of the services that you offer that we have not ventured into on this podcast, LSA, local service ads on Google. So I want to talk about that for a little bit here because it's something that I don't think a ton of people know about. It's not a service that I personally offer at my agency, so I'm always curious. So it's piqued my interest, and I know that you've done a lot with it. So kind of introduce us to LSA and what it is about that service offering that makes a huge difference for your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully by the end of this that you've decided you're going to add this to your services because you absolutely
probably,
should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm already typing to my assistant like, hey, we need to do this now.
Yeah. So the magic of LSA is if you go in and you search for a local service, go plumber near me or HVAC company in my area, something like that. That first Google guaranteed search result that you're going to see is a local service ad. Basically, what Google is doing is guaranteeing your work up to $2,000. And so the first thing you have to do is go get verified. You have to prove that you have insurance, that you have a license, things like that. Once you've been verified, which is sometimes a pain, just keep reaching out to Google support. You'll get through. Don't worry.
Like it's the same, kind of like a Google business profile verification. It can be painful.
Yeah. Once you're in, the difference between that and any other service, it's a pay per lead. Not pay per click, it's pay per lead. Every call you get, you're paying for. And you can get, $30 to $40 cost per leads through that. So what you'll do is you'll select your service area, the services that you want to show up for, and start bidding. The most important things that you can do is keep activity going in there. So keep adding photos, keep adding, change your budget once a week to something else, just down $10, up $10, get cute with it. And then make sure that you're listening to every phone call. What Google wants to see is that somebody called in, they booked an appointment, and then you finish the job completely and they let you a 5-star review. If you can consistently complete that cycle, Google will help you rank. And the more often you can get those reviews, the better off you will be. So I've got clients with like 47 reviews that will outrank people with 2,000 reviews because we're able to get them the right reviews, because we have the constant activity, because we do the setup correctly. But yeah, I mean, that's really it. Just keep doing that cycle. Now, if you don't do that cycle, it might seem like you're doing great, but I have people like, our biggest business is going to be people that were spending 10 grand a month, just crushing it with LSA, not completing that cycle. And then one day they can't spend even $100, right? Because it's literally like, you're not getting reviews. So I'm not going to keep sending you. If I'm going to guarantee your work and you're not getting reviews, like I'm not going to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's super important that you make sure that you're getting booked appointments from that and that you are getting 5-star reviews. And if you do that, you can absolutely just crush it. I mean, most of my clients' number one lead volume is going to go through LSA.
Wow. Okay. So how does, on the Google side of things, does Google charge you anything outside of that ad spend, or how does Google track that you're doing what they want you to do, which is get the lead, take the call, close the business? Or are they only using the 5-star review to verify?
Yeah, I mean, mostly the 5-star review. So no, Google's not going to charge you anything. Right now, you can dispute leads. So if something comes outside of your local area, or for, plumbing in your roofer or something like that, you can dispute it and say, hey, this is a bad lead. That's going away, unfortunately. And they're going to go up based off a rating system. Hey, how good was this lead? So that's really all you can do. So you probably will end up spending money on leads that aren't that great. It's okay. It's not that big of a deal. It's part of the process.
Right.
I know a lot of people that just hate that. And it's like, yeah, I get it. But like, you're spending $30 leads. So like, spend 60 this one time, you'll be fine. So 2, they have a button that when somebody calls in, it like records the information and it's booked an appointment. Just click that button, right? So that they know that they booked an appointment and a lead came through. And then now you can use your GMB link, review link, send that to people. And if they click that and leave a review and Google connects those 2 people, then you win. And so make sure, like, I know a lot of people like within their CRMs are using their CRMs to go get reviews. That's great. That's fine. Just make sure from an LSA perspective, they're using that Google My Business review link. Otherwise, you are going to be handicapping yourself for sure.
Interesting. And Google can match the lead to the actual person, or to the actual phone call. If they click on that, it has to be a click from the ad on the call button directly to the business.
Yeah. I mean, most of the time it can't. It's not going to get everybody, right? So if my wife calls in, books the appointment, I thought they did a really good job, I leave the review, then those are really hard to connect. And so as often as possible, you want to get the person that called in, which I know your techs have no idea, but like right. If you can, you should.
Yeah. And then is this an addendum to a search ads campaign, or is this like its own separate section to running search ads?
Own separate section. So,
okay.
If I could, I would just like pull up a screenshot and just take you through an account real quick. Maybe we can do that after this. But like, yeah, you can definitely, like, it's its own section. Just go to LSA login. Google search that and you'll find out, there's a link at the very top and it should push you through.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then is this, it sounds like if you were to rank these services, these lead gen services on level of importance, is it LSA, profile, then search? How do you rank that? That's how I would. But
that's a really good question. I would say it depends on when you're at.
Okay.
If you're sub 1 million, 100% go get LSA, right? You can watch a couple of YouTube videos. You'll figure it out. You'll do it. Just do it yourself, right? Once you get above 1 million, you're probably hiring an agency to do it. 1, they're an expert in it. 2, it's not worth your time, right? You're a business owner. You need to focus on other things. There's other fires that need your time. It's very similar to bookkeeping. Like, you could absolutely do it. You just shouldn't, kind of thing. So that's where I would put that. I love Google ads because you have a lot more control than you do in LSA. Right? You know this, right? Like, if the campaign's not working, you try something else. You go competitor campaign, you go to brand campaign, you go through, this search campaign or top of the funnel campaigns. Whereas LSA, you don't have that flexibility. It literally is pretty straightforward. So for Google ads, I'd always suggest going agency. I think you'll waste a lot of money if you try to do it yourself.
Oh, for
I
sure.
would probably waste a lot of money, and I literally do this for a living. That's why I have a team now.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I would definitely, I like the above 500,000 at least for Google Ads. I think otherwise, it's going to be pricey with the agency fee and the ad spend that goes through. Whereas LSA is a little bit more straightforward, so I think you could probably get away with that. SEO, I tend to want to hold off on SEO until you get closer to 2 million. You can get it beforehand, but generally speaking, like that's a long game, right? That's an investment game.
Yeah.
Think of it as in like if you have your own finances personally, like get out of debt, get your personal savings up, and then start throwing money into the investments, right? So
Right.
Same thing. SEO is kind of that investment long game. I like it closer to 2 million or plus because it's going to take 12 months to get you those results. So
Yep.
I would say LSA, Google Ads, SEO is kind of the three. If I were to start a home service business tomorrow, that's kind of the rank I would put them in.
What about the Google Business Profile?
Yeah, Google Business Profile is interchangeable with Google Ads. I think they're kind of very similar. It can drive. I mean, we have one client that we drove 1,000 calls last month just from GMB. So like you can absolutely crush it through GMB. I'm sure you have the same results, right?
Yep.
So yeah, like you can absolutely crush it. And it's more of an activities based system. So you can, if you're early on, YouTube it, figure it out. Once you get above $500,000 on a business, you might as well hire that out because it's not that expensive to hire out.
Right.
Brian's going to get you way better results than you're going to get yourself. So like hire that out and then go hold them accountable for the results. Like, that's kind of what I would think of doing.
Exactly. And we do a lot with Google Business Profiles because, like you said, especially if you're a sub $2 million company, any company is going to benefit from having a well-optimized and consistently managed Google Business Profile. But it can drive 50 to, like you said, thousands of phone calls, so maybe not thousands, but at least, upwards of hundreds of or 1,000 phone calls that you might otherwise have missed out on. And unless you're paying us to do it for you, you spent nothing to get. Like it was your profile. And if you're managing it yourself and you're doing great, you're doing your posts, you're adding your images, you're getting your reviews, you're replying to them, everything is set up, you're doing your SEO within your profile, then it's free. Like it's the craziest thing. It's like the marketing gods looked at Google and said, you're going to offer this for free. And for those who want to really put that fuel on that fire, you hire it out and have a proper person manage it for you so it stays consistent. The biggest problem we see is that businesses, they get busy doing business and they don't have someone focusing on their profile. And that's when your results on that can start tanking. But now with the MapPap ranking so high or showing up so high in a search, it really behooves you to rank near the top of that map pack. So yeah, those profiles are, between that, your ads, the LSA, and then having a great website, it's really a recipe for incredible success without having like a massive, like you said, like if you're doing SEO, then that's a long-term investment. But yeah,
Are you running sponsored ads on your GMB?
Yes and no. Okay. We've tried it. We're testing it essentially.
Okay. We are too. We've had some really good results with it, but it's super cheap. So it's like $200 to $300 from an ad spend standpoint at most.
Yeah.
And we do it through a smart campaign.
Yeah.
And so we tend to see good results from that.
That's what we've been doing. I have my Google, I run the smart campain through the profile. Hot tip, make sure your profile is always hooked up to your other Google accounts, your GA4, your ads, your website, all of that. Make sure that's there because there's a lot of businesses that have none of these things connected. So your ads account doesn't talk to your GMB and vice versa. Mm-hmm. And when we say GMB, it used to be called Google My Business. It's now Google Business Profile, but they're interchangeable for those who might not be aware. But
confused.
But I mean, that
my bad, guys.
Yeah, right. These nerds. But the Google ecosystem is driving so much business, and that's why I wanted to talk about these things in this LSA, especially because what the Google ecosystem can do for your business is unreal. And a lot of it can be done for not a ton of expense. So awesome. Well, yeah, we've covered a ton today. I mean, you and I could nerd out. I want to make sure I honor your time here. As we start to close it out here, what's the future for your business? What are your growth plans? And, we have a lot of people that ask us about digital marketing, and being a digital marketer myself, that's right up my alley and I love it. We can talk about it all day, but there's so many different ways you can do a digital marketing business. What are your guys' plans? And I'm going to ask you for a bit of advice for our listeners right after that.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm not a flipper. So like my goal is not to like build this and sell. Like I've got a couple of those like small businesses that I hope grow and I sell those things. But I truly want to build the number one home service marketing agency in the world. I think that there's juggernauts that own the space that just should. I
Mhm.
don't think they're that good at this. So like my game here is to go play ball and to see if we can go compete at with the big boys. So that's the game. My goal is to get to 40 million over the next 10 years. And I
Nice.
don't think that that's too difficult. I think that that is like within line. If we do the bare minimum, we're going to hit that. So, kind of ambitious.
Yeah, no, I love it.
The game is not small.
Yeah.
And, just want to grow, like personally want to grow through this. I've had opportunity to bring in coaches and stuff like that. And sometimes it's really good to bring in a coach, and sometimes it's really good to just go through the suck and learn it yourself and learn how to think through it. And so for me, it's really been one of those things that I want to keep learning and keep growing, and having to change into somebody new, right? The CEO of this company is very different from the marketer that I was a couple of years ago, just doing one service or sales and stuff like that. So that's the future.
I love it. I love it. All right. With all your entrepreneurial wisdom, if you could distill it down to one piece of advice for those who are either aspiring entrepreneurs or maybe early stage entrepreneurs, a lot of our folks are in these stages in their career and in their life. What would be one piece of advice that you would have for our folks?
Enjoy the journey. Like, I don't want to get like super cheesy and just like enjoy the suck or whatever it is, but like, I think the ones that like, I had someone describe it, entrepreneurism, like a Rubik's Cube. And every day you get on there and you do the Rubik's Cube, you get two, maybe three sides. You go to bed, you wake up the next day and it's like half undone. So you only have one side. So you have to redo that side. And I feel like that is the game of entrepreneurship. You have the same conversations over and over again. They just take different forms. And so enjoy, like, fall in love with that idea of like, my job is to be somebody that's good at fixing the Rubik's Cube and keep changing and keep growing. If you like that, then this is going to be the game, right? Like, it's like playing basketball. Yeah, we want to, or any kind of sport. Like, yeah, I want to go win a championship, but like, what I have to do to become that person that wins championships is enjoy practice, enjoy like learning, enjoy like getting incrementally better every day. So I think if you do that, that you'll be unstoppable.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I think everybody could benefit from that piece of advice, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. Just enjoy the ride, because we only get one of these, right? Might as well have fun while you're here. So
let's have fun.
All right, Sam, man, this has been awesome. I want to make sure that our listeners and viewers can get a hold of you if they'd like to. Where's the best place to check you out? Or if there's anybody listening who might be in need of Sam's services, what's the best way to check you out?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to servicescalers.com and check out the website that I put up in 2 hours. So it hasn't been updated since like we just jammed together. So like, new website's coming. Hopefully by the time this is live, it's beautiful. But right now it's very basic. If you want to connect with me directly, X is a great Twitter. X, I don't know what we call it, but hey, Sam Preston is my handle. Hit me up there. And then one of the things we're doing right now is a roast. So every Thursday we're gonna be hitting up some kind of roast. So if you just want to get your marketing totally roasted, you'll find it on the website. We'll have a link in the banner or something like that. Join us for a roast. And Brien, I need to have you on there so that we can just like roast some people. It's gonna be worse than a Kevin Hart short joke. Like, we're just gonna make fun of the opportunities you're not taking advantage of. But you'll be able to walk away with some actual advice of like, oh, like if I just do these 10 things, I can grow my business. If you're an entrepreneur and you're wanting to grow an agency, would love to chat. Like that, I've been there. I've been doing this for 8 years now. It feels like an overnight success, because like January to here, we've been growing really fast, but it took me a lot of time, mistakes and efforts to get to this point to be able to do that. And so would love to be just a friend to anybody that is trying to start an agency or wants to get in the space. Like, there's an abundance of opportunity here. So hit me up.
Awesome. And I want to point out that one of our themes at MU is action over everything. You just go out and do the thing, right? Just do it. And you mentioned that you threw up your website in a few hours, and that's the one that's still cranking. You got a new one in production, but when you were getting started, you just said, let's get this together. Let's throw it out there. It's out in the ether. Done is better than perfect. And now you're scaling towards $2 million. Like, that's a perfect example of what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how many I met a $17 million business that never did anything digital. The guy had never owned a business. He was a plumber, just bought a $17 million company, doesn't have a website. Wow. So like they got to 17 million. Trust me, whatever like shitty website you have or like just go do it. Like just go do it, go grow, go learn from it, and you'll be good.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, dude, rock on. This was a fantastic time. Thank you so much for joining us, and you have a good one, my friend.
All right, man. Cheers.